Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the star-dusted sands of ancient Egypt, where the Nile's whispers carry secrets darker than a moonless night. Picture yourself trudging barefoot along the river's edge, the air heavy with papyrus and mystery. The Egyptians, those pyramid-building geniuses, didn't just use water to grow crops. They turned it into a tool to pry truth from trembling lips. Water torture? Yeah, it's as old as the Sphinx's smirk. And you probably won't survive this tale without yawning into oblivion. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in Egypt's heart, around 2500 BCE, where the Nile isn't just a river, it's life, law, and a lie detector test rolled into one. The Egyptians believed truth was sacred, tied to Ma'at, their goddess of order. If you lied, you weren't just a jerk. You were messing with the universe's balance. So when someone, say a sneaky vizier or a shifty merchant, was suspected of deceit, the priests didn't mess around. They'd drag you to a torchlit chamber where water became your judge. Historical records, like those pesky hieroglyphs carved into temple walls, confirm water was used in rituals to cleanse liars. No, not a spa day. Think more like a slow, dripping nightmare. Now, here's the quirky bit. Some Egyptologists whisper that the priests didn't always use plain Nile water. Fringe texts hint they'd mix in crocodile tears, yep, actual croc drool, believing it carried Sobek's divine judgment. Sounds like a stretch, right? But imagine you're the poor sap tied up, hearing the priests mutter about reptile blessings. You'd spill your secrets just to avoid the smell. Historians still argue whether this was legit or just temple propaganda to scare folks straight. Did they really bottle croc tears, or was it all a psychological trick? No one's dug up a labeled vial yet, so the debate rages on. You shift uneasily on the cool stone floor, catching the faint plink of water in the distance. The Egyptians weren't splashing buckets like some medieval dunk tank. Their method was subtler, crueler, a slow drip, maybe from a punctured clay pot aimed at your forehead or chest. Each drop feels like a hammer after hours. It's not pain, not exactly, but it's maddening. Like that one mosquito buzzing in your room at 3 a.m. The priests, with their shaved heads and linen robes, would watch, chanting softly, waiting for you to crack. They didn't need to yell. The water did the talking. Why water? It's everywhere here. Sure, but it's also symbolic. The Nile was Egypt's lifeline, feeding crops, carrying boats, and apparently flushing out fibs. Using it to test truth felt poetic, like the river itself was snitching to the gods. You can almost hear the priests joking, "Lie to us, and you'll drown in Ma'at's tears." Okay, maybe they didn't say that, but you get the vibe. The torture wasn't about killing you. Death was too messy for a culture obsessed with order. It was about bending your will until you babbled every secret, from stealing grain to flirting with the pharaoh's cousin. As you stand there, the air grows thicker, and the drip grows louder. You're not even tied up, but you feel trapped. The priest's eyes glint in the flickering light, and you wonder, who's next? A thief? A spy? Or just some guy who forgot to pay his barley taxes? The Nile keeps flowing, and so does the truth. Or at least what the priests decide it is. You take a step back, the sand gritty under your toes, and the chamber fades into shadows. But that drip, that relentless drip, follows you. You're trudging along the Nile's muddy banks now, the air thick with reeds and secrets. The river glints under a crescent moon, and you can't shake that eerie drip from the temple chamber. Remember that crocodile tear nonsense? Out here, the water feels alive, like it's watching you, judging you. The Egyptians didn't just see the Nile as a resource. It was their cosmic lie detector, a silent partner in their quest for truth. Around 2000 BCE, when dynasties rose and fell like the river's floods, water became the ultimate snitch, coaxing confessions from anyone dumb enough to lie to a priest. Mainstream history backs this up. Temple inscriptions from the Middle Kingdom mention rituals where water revealed the heart's truth. Think less splashy waterboarding, more psychological chess. You're a suspected traitor, maybe a guard who looked too cozy with a Hittite envoy. The priests don't need swords. They've got the Nile. They lead you to a secluded riverside shrine where the water's flow feels like a heartbeat. You're not dunked yet. Instead, they make you kneel, staring at the current, while a priest drones on about Hapi, the river god, who hates liars. The threat's enough to make your palms sweat. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe scholars claim the priests spiked the ritual with lotus extract. You know that flower they loved slapping on every fresco? Supposedly, a tiny dose in the water you're forced to sip could make you woozy, your tongue looser than a camel trader's. No hard proof, but imagine you're kneeling there, the Nile lapping at your knees, and your head swimming from a floral cocktail. You'd confess to stealing the pharaoh's sandals just to shut them up. Historians still argue whether this was a real trick or just a myth spun by later Greek travelers who loved exaggerating Egypt's weirdness. Lotus or no lotus, the priests knew how to mess with your mind. You shift uncomfortably, the damp ground soaking your knees. The priests aren't yelling. They're whispering, their voices blending with the river's murmur. They ask you about that Hittite envoy. Did you pass him a message? You deny it, but the water's relentless flow feels like it's peeling back your lies. They don't touch you, but they don't have to. The Nile's your interrogator, its ripples accusing you with every lap against the shore. You're starting to get why people cracked. It's not just fear. It's the weight of the river, the gods, the whole damn cosmos staring you down. The setup's simple but brutal. They might make you hold a clay jar filled with Nile water, arms outstretched for hours. Spill a drop, and you're guilty. Your muscles scream, but you can't let go. Hapi's watching, and so are the priests. It's like that time you tried holding a plank at the gym for 3 minutes and regretted every life choice. Except here, failure means you're branded a liar, maybe exiled to a desert work camp. No pressure, right? The priest's calm is what gets you. Those serene faces, like they're just watering their garden, not breaking your soul. You glance at the river, its surface hiding crocodiles and gods knows what else. The Egyptians loved their symbolism, and the Nile was the ultimate multi-tool, life-giver, truth-finder, and, if you pushed your luck, your final bath. A priest leans closer, his breath smelling of natron and incense, and asks again about the envoy. You stammer, your voice lost in the river's hum. Did you slip up? You're not sure anymore. The water's winning, and you're just a speck in its current. As you stumble back from the shrine, the Nile's glow fades behind you. Your knees are caked in mud, and your heart's pounding like a festival drum. The priests don't follow, but their whispers linger, carried by the river's endless flow. You're free, for now. But the water's still watching, and you know it's not done with you yet. You're slipping deeper into the shadows now, leaving the Nile's muddy banks behind. The air grows cooler as you step into a temple's hidden chambers, where torchlight dances on limestone walls. That drip, remember it from the riverside shrine? It's back, echoing like a heartbeat in this claustrophobic maze. The priests, with their linen robes and unblinking stares, aren't just splashing water for kicks. Here, in these sacred vaults, they're wielding it like a scalpel, carving truth from the minds of anyone who dares defy Ma'at's order. It's 1800 BCE, and Egypt's temples are the ultimate lie detector labs. Historical records, like those etched in Karnak's sprawling complex, confirm priests used water in purification rites to test loyalty. Not the warm, fuzzy kind of purification, mind you. You're a merchant, maybe, caught selling short measures of grain. The pharaoh's auditors don't buy your "it was an accident" excuse, so you're hauled here. The chamber's dim, the air thick with myrrh, and a clay basin of Nile water sits like a judge on a stone plinth. The priests don't shout. They murmur, their voices slithering into your skull. You're told to confess, or the water will speak for you. Here's the quirky bit. Some fringe texts suggest the priests used singing bowls filled with water to mess with you. Not the Zen yoga retreat kind. Think bronze basins that, when struck, hummed at frequencies that made your teeth buzz. Supposedly, they'd set these bowls near you, the water rippling in time with the sound, until your nerves frayed like cheap papyrus. No proof survives. But imagine you're stuck in that chamber, the humming drilling into your brain while water drips on your forehead. You'd admit to stealing the moon just to make it stop. Historians still argue whether these bowls were real or just a spooky rumor spread to keep folks in line. Did the priests vibe you into submission, or was it all theatrics? You shift on the cold floor, your wrists bound with flax rope. The priests circle you, their sandals whispering on stone. They don't need to touch you. The water's doing the work. A slow drip falls from a perforated jar above, each drop smacking your scalp like a tiny fist. It's not painful, not really. But after an hour, it's like the gods are tap dancing on your sanity. You try to focus, to deny the grain scam, but the drip's rhythm is relentless, syncing with your pulse. It's like that one song stuck in your head at 2 a.m. Except this one might get you banished. The priest's method is diabolically simple. They might pour a thin stream of water over your face, not enough to drown, but enough to make you gasp, your body screaming for air. Or they'll make you stare into that basin, its surface reflecting your panicked eyes, while they chant about Anubis weighing your heart. It's psychological warfare, Egyptian style, and it's working. You're starting to forget what you did or didn't do. Did you short the grain? Maybe. The water doesn't care. It just keeps coming. You catch a priest's smirk. Did he just wink? Nah, must be the torchlight. But you're not imagining the pressure. The Egyptians were masters of symbols, and water was their ace. It wasn't just Hapi's gift. It was a mirror of your soul. Lie, and it'd drown you in guilt. Confess, and it'd cleanse you. At least that's what they sold you. A priest leans in, his voice soft as a cobra's hiss, asking about the grain again. You mumble something, anything, to stop the drip. He nods, but the water doesn't. As you slump against the wall, the chamber's walls seem to close in. The torches flicker, casting shadows like judging gods. You're not sure if you confessed or just babbled nonsense, but the priests seem satisfied. For now. The drip slows, but its echo lingers in your bones. You stumble toward the chamber's exit, the Nile's distant hum calling you back. Truth or not, the water's won this round. You're still reeling from the temple's shadowy chambers, that cursed drip haunting your every step. Now you're deeper in the labyrinth, where the air's so thick with incense it clings to your skin like a second shadow. The priests have upped the ante, and the Nile's water, remember that soul-judging river, is no longer just a prop. It's the star of a grim show, a relentless interrogator that doesn't blink. It's around 1700 BCE, and Egypt's obsession with truth has turned water into a tormentor that could make even a sphinx squeal. Historical records from the Second Intermediate period, like those pesky temple reliefs, show water was a go-to for breaking stubborn suspects. You're not a merchant this time. Say you're a scribe, caught with a suspiciously heavy purse after a royal audit. The priests don't buy your generous aunt story, so you're dragged to a low-ceilinged room where a single clay pipe juts from the wall. Water trickles from it, slow and deliberate, each drop hitting a stone slab where you're forced to sit. The priests watch, their eyes glinting like jackals, waiting for you to crack. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe Egyptologists whisper that the priests used moon-charged water for extra mojo. Supposedly, they'd leave jars under the full moon, believing Thoth's lunar vibes amped up the water's truth-sniffing powers. Imagine you're that scribe, already sweating, and they're droning on about how the moon's blessed this drip to see your soul. You'd think they're nuts, but that drop hitting your forehead feels like it's boring into your brain. Historians still argue whether this was a legit ritual or just priests flexing their mystic cred to scare you witless. Moon magic or not, the effect's the same. You're losing it. You squirm on the slab, the rope around your wrists chafing. The drip's not random. It's timed, like a metronome set to torture. Each drop lands on the same spot, a wet thud that starts as annoying but turns maddening. It's like that one coworker who taps their pen all day, except this pen's carving a dent in your sanity. The priests don't rush. They chant softly, something about Ma'at's feather and your lying heart. You try to focus on your story, that aunt, her generous barley stash, but the drip's rewriting your thoughts. Did you steal? You're not sure anymore. The setup's evil in its simplicity. The pipe's fed by a hidden cistern, probably topped up by some poor apprentice hauling Nile water. The priests might adjust the flow, letting it hit harder or softer, keeping you off balance. Sometimes they pause it, just long enough for you to hope it's over. Then, splat. Another drop. It's like when your Wi-Fi cuts out right before you send an email, but with higher stakes. You're not drowning, but you're drowning in doubt. The priests lean in, asking about the purse again. You mumble, your voice cracking like dry papyrus. They don't smile, but you swear one's hiding a smirk. Water's not just a tool here. It's a symbol, a god, a judge. The Nile's purity is supposed to wash away lies, but all you feel is its weight. You're starting to get why people confessed, even to stuff they didn't do. It's not about guilt. It's about escape. The drip's your world now, a wet, rhythmic hell that makes you question everything. Did you take the gold? Maybe. Or was it the overseer? You blurt something, anything, just to stop the sound. The priests nod, but the drip doesn't. You slump, the slab cold against your back. The chamber's walls seem to pulse, the torchlight blurring. You're not sure if you're free or doomed, but the water's won again. As you stumble toward the exit, the drip's echo follows, a reminder that truth in Egypt comes at a price. The Nile's still out there, waiting, and you're not sure you'll ever feel dry again. You're stumbling out of that dripping chamber, your head still ringing with the Nile's relentless pulse. Now you're in a grander space, a courtyard open to the stars, where the pharaoh himself looms like a living god. It's 1600 BCE, and Egypt's rulers aren't just sitting pretty on their thrones. They're elbow-deep in the truth game, using water to squeeze confessions from anyone who threatens their divine order. That drip, the one that's been haunting you since the Nile's banks, is back. But now it's got royal backing, and it's not messing around. Historical records, like the Annals of the New Kingdom, confirm Pharaoh's sanctioned water-based interrogations for high-stakes cases. You're a courtier, maybe, caught whispering about a plot to poison the Pharaoh's wine. Bad move. You're dragged to this courtyard, where a massive stone basin, carved with ibis and lotus motifs, holds Nile water that glints like liquid obsidian. The pharaoh's there, his gold collar flashing in the torchlight, but it's the priests who run the show. They've got a new trick, a wooden frame where you're tied, tilted back, while water drips onto your face from a perforated gourd. It's not a spa day, it's a royal lie detector. Here's the quirky bit. Some fringe tales claim the pharaohs added a pinch of natron. Yep, that salty stuff they used for mummification, to the water. Supposedly, it stung your eyes or skin, making the drip feel like a divine slap from Amun himself. Imagine you're strapped to that frame, already freaking out, and now your face is tingling like you face-planted in a salt shaker. No hard evidence, but the idea's wild enough to make you sweat. Historians still argue whether natron was actually used, or if it was just a rumor to hype the pharaoh's fearsome rep. Either way, you're not loving this VIP treatment. You squirm against the ropes, the gourd above you leaking its steady torment. Each drop hits your forehead, your nose, sometimes your mouth, making you sputter. It's not drowning, but it's close enough to make your heart race like a spooked gazelle. The priests chant, their voices a low hum, while the pharaoh watches, his face unreadable. You try to stick to your story, no plot, no poison, but the water's rewriting your brain. It's like trying to nap through a neighbor's 4 a.m. drum practice. The drip's rhythm is your world now, and it's winning. The setup's brutal but elegant. The frame's angled to keep you helpless. The water's flow controlled by a priest who tweaks it like he's tuning a harp. Sometimes they let a stream trickle over your nose, just enough to make you gag without killing you. It's precision torture, Egyptian style, and it's got the pharaoh's seal of approval. You're starting to get why traitors spilled their guts. It's not just the water, it's the weight of the pharaoh's gaze, the gods, the whole kingdom pressing down. You blurt something about a conspirator. True or not, you just want out. The priests exchange glances, but the drip keeps going. You catch a whiff of the pharaoh's myrrh-scented cloak, and it's almost a relief from the damp misery. Almost. The courtyard's quiet, save for the drip and the priest's murmurs. The pharaoh leans forward, asking about the poison again. You mumble, your voice lost in the water's rhythm. Did you name a real plotter or just make it up? You're not sure anymore. The water doesn't care, it's just doing its job. A priest jokes. Okay, maybe not, but you swear you see a smirk, that the Nile always finds the truth. You're not laughing. As you slump in the frame, the stars above blur through your stinging eyes. The courtyard feels like a trap, the basin's water an endless accuser. You're not sure if you're cleared or condemned, but the pharaoh's nod feels like a stay of execution. The drip slows, but its echo lingers. A wet ghost in your skull. You're untied, stumbling toward the courtyard's edge, the Nile's distant hum calling you back. The pharaoh's truth quest never sleeps, and neither will you tonight. You're staggering away from the pharaoh's courtyard, the weight of his gaze and that relentless drip still clinging to you like damp linen. Now, you're back in the temple's shadowy depths, where the air hums with something heavier than incense, doubt. It's 1550 BCE, and the Nile's waters, those sacred lifeblood rivers you've been dodging, are under scrutiny. Were they a divine gift for truth, or a cursed tool for torment? The priests aren't just testing liars anymore. They're wrestling with the morality of their own methods, and you're caught in the middle, pondering the line between sacred and sinister. Historical records, like those from the early New Kingdom, show water rituals were central to temple justice, believed to channel Ma'at's order. You're a lowly temple worker, maybe, overhearing whispers of a thief who stole sacred amulets. The priests haul him to a sunken chamber, where a stone trough holds Nile water, its surface rippling under torchlight. They're not just dripping water now. They're pouring it in slow, deliberate streams over the thief's face as he's tied to a slab. The goal's the same, truth, but the question lingers. Is this holy cleansing or just cruelty dressed in lotus garlands? Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe stories claim priests used blessed water infused with crushed lapis lazuli, thinking its blue hue mimicked the heavens and scared liars into confessing. Picture you're that thief, already panicking, and they're splashing you with this sparkly gem-tinted water, claiming it's straight from Osiris's realm. You'd spill your secrets just to avoid a second dose of cosmic Kool-Aid. Historians still argue whether lapis water was a real ritual or a tall tale spun by priests to justify their budget. Did it have divine vibes, or was it just a shiny scare tactic? No one's found a glittery jug to settle it. You shift uneasily, watching from the chamber's edge, the trough's water glinting like a judgmental eye. The thief's sputtering, his wrists straining against ropes as the priests pour another stream. It's not a flood, but it's enough to make him gasp, his chest heaving like he's run from Memphis to Thebes. The water's cold, biting, and you can almost feel it on your own skin, like that time you jumped into a pool in January and regretted everything. The priest's chants weave through the air, invoking Hapi and Ma'at, but you're starting to wonder if the gods are cool with this. The thief's not screaming, but his eyes are screaming plenty. The method's slick, almost too perfect. The trough's fed by a hidden channel, probably rigged by some clever engineer who never got credit. The priests control the flow with a wooden stopper, letting water trickle or gush, depending on how stubborn you are. It's like adjusting the shower head from gentle mist to pressure washer, except you're not getting clean, you're getting broken. The priests ask about the amulets again, their voices soft but sharp. The thief mumbles, something about a merchant in the market. True? Maybe. The water doesn't care. It just keeps flowing. You catch a priest's glance and you swear he's weighing you too. Did he see you pocket that extra bread ration last week? Nah, you're paranoid. But the chamber's vibe isn't helping. The Nile's supposed to be sacred, a gift from the gods, but down here, it feels like a weapon. The priests believe they're serving Ma'at, but you're not so sure. Is this justice or just a wet way to bully confessions? The thief's head slumps, his fight fading with each splash. You're starting to get why people talk, even if it's nonsense. It's not about truth. It's about surviving the sacred. As you back away, the chamber's damp chill seeps into your bones. The torches flicker, casting shadows that look like frowning gods. The thief's still tied, the water still pouring, but the priests seem satisfied. For now. You slip toward the exit, the Nile's distant murmur a reminder that its waters give life and take it too. The line between sacred and sinister's blurring, and you're not sure which side you're on anymore. You're creeping away from that unsettling chamber, the Nile's sacred or sinister waters still rippling in your mind. Now, you're in a cluttered workshop tucked behind the temple, where the air smells of clay and sweat. It's 1500 BCE, and the priests aren't just chanting and splashing. They're getting crafty, building tools to make water an even crueler truth-teller. That drip, the one that's been stalking you since the Nile's banks, isn't just a leaky pot anymore. It's a precision instrument, and you're about to see how Egypt's ingenuity turned Hapi's gift into a nightmare. Historical records, like tool sketches on Theban ostraca, confirm the Egyptians engineered devices for water-based interrogations. You're a potter's apprentice, maybe, roped into helping carve a stone basin with suspicious grooves. The priests drop by, muttering about truth vessels, and you realize this isn't for washing sandals. They're rigging a system, a clay pipe fed by a raised cistern, designed to drip water onto a bound suspect's face or chest. You're no engineer, but you can tell this setup's meant to break spirits, not quench thirst. The basin's ready, and you're dreading its first test run. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe sources whisper that priests carved tiny Sobek effigies into the pipes, believing the crocodile god's image made the water bite harder. Psychologically, at least. Picture you're the poor sap tied under that pipe, and each drop feels like Sobek's jaws snapping at your sanity. No proof of these carvings exists, but the idea's wild enough to make you shiver. Historians still argue whether Sobek's likeness was part of the toolkit, or just a spooky story to keep apprentices like you in line. Were the priests that extra, or was it all for show? You hover near the basin, your hands gritty with clay dust. The priests test the setup, and water drips from the pipe, steady as a heartbeat, onto a straw mat where a suspect might lie. Each drop lands with a soft plop, but you imagine it hitting skin hour after hour until it's louder than a festival drum. It's like that time you tried meditating but got distracted by a ticking clock. Except this clock's wet and wants your secrets. The priests nod, pleased, but you're queasy, knowing what's coming for some unlucky thief or spy. The tools are deceptively simple. The cistern's just a big jar, hoisted on a wooden frame, with a reed valve to control the flow. The pipe's angled to hit the same spot every time, like an archer who never misses. Sometimes they add a second pipe, dripping on your chest while the first targets your forehead, doubling the torment. It's not high-tech, but it's evil genius. Egyptian IKEA for torture. The priests don't need to lift a finger. Gravity and the Nile do the work. You overhear them planning to use it on a grain smuggler tomorrow, and your stomach twists. You wipe sweat from your brow, catching a priest's eye. He jokes. Okay, maybe not. But his smirk says, "Don't get any ideas about skimming clay." You're not planning to, but the workshop's vibe is heavy. These tools aren't just pottery. They're weapons in the war for truth. The Nile's still the star, its water funneled into these cruel contraptions. But you're starting to see it less as a god and more as a bully. The priests believe they're serving Ma'at, but you wonder if Ma'at would approve of this DIY drip machine. As you slip out of the workshop, the cistern's faint gurgle follows you. The torches cast long shadows, like fingers pointing to the next victim. You're not tied up, but you feel trapped, knowing the tools you helped shape will soon break someone. The basin's ready, the pipes are set, and the Nile's waters keep flowing, indifferent to the screams they'll draw. You head toward the temple's exit, the drips echo a grim reminder that truth in Egypt comes with a wet, heavy price. You're slipping out of that grim workshop, the echo of dripping water still gnawing at your nerves. Now you're back in the temple's heart, a cavernous chamber where the air feels like it's holding its breath. It's 1450 BCE, and the Nile's waters, those crafty, truth-hungry drops you've been dodging, are no longer just tools. They're the voice of the voiceless, carrying the silent screams of those who faced them. You're not the suspect this time, but a bystander, maybe a temple scribe's assistant, watching the water do its ruthless work on someone else. Yet, you can't shake the feeling it's judging you, too. Historical records, like the judicial texts from Deir el-Medina, confirm water-based interrogations were standard for serious crimes. Picture a soldier, accused of looting a royal tomb, tied to a wooden frame in this chamber. The priests aren't messing around. They've got a clay pipe rigged. Remember that workshop's creepy setup? Dripping water onto his forehead, each drop a tiny hammer. His face twitches, but he's not screaming. Not yet. The priests watch, their linen robes ghostly in the torchlight, waiting for the Nile to pry out his secrets. You're just there to fetch papyrus, but you can't look away. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe tales claim the priests would burn lotus incense during these sessions, believing its scent made suspects woozier, like a truth serum from the gods. Imagine you're that soldier, already losing it under the drip, and now the air's thick with this floral haze, making your head spin like you chugged bad beer. No solid evidence, but it's a wild thought. Historians still argue whether lotus smoke was part of the ritual or just a romanticized story from later scribes who loved a good plot twist. Did it loosen tongues, or was it just temple aromatherapy gone wrong? You shift on the stone floor, clutching your reed pen, as the soldier's breathing grows ragged. The drip's relentless, each plop echoing like a judge's gavel. It's not loud, but it's deafening, like that one neighbor who mows their lawn at dawn. The soldier's trying to stay tough, denying the tomb raid, but his eyes are wild, darting like trapped fish. You can almost feel the drops on your own skin, cold and unyielding, each one chipping away at his resolve. The priests don't flinch. They're pros, their chants blending with the water's rhythm, invoking Ma'at's unblinking justice. The setup's brutal in its precision. The pipe's fed by a hidden cistern, its flow controlled by a priest who tweaks it like he's tuning a lyre. Sometimes, they let the water hit his nose, making him sputter, his body jerking against the ropes. It's not drowning, but it's close enough to make his chest heave. You're starting to get why people confess, even to stuff they didn't do. It's not just the water. It's the endlessness, the knowing it won't stop until you break. The soldier mumbles something about a partner, maybe a lie to buy time. The priests lean in, but the drip keeps going. You catch a whiff of that lotus incense? Or is it just your imagination? Either way, the chamber's air feels heavy, like it's pressing you down. The soldier's not screaming, but his silence is louder, a raw, desperate plea. The Nile's supposed to be sacred, a divine truth finder, but right now it feels like a bully. You wonder if the gods are watching, nodding along, or if they're as uneasy as you are. A priest glances your way, and you fumble your pen, hoping he doesn't think you're sketching the scene. No one jokes here, but you swear the water's mocking you all. As you edge toward the chamber's exit, the soldier's head slumps, his fight fading. The torches flicker, casting shadows that look like accusing fingers. You're not tied up, but you feel the weight of those drops, each one a reminder of the Nile's power. The soldier's still muttering, the priests still watching, and the water's still winning. You slip out, the drip's echo chasing you, a wet ghost that won't let go. The temple's walls close in, and you know the Nile's not done telling its stories. You're hurrying away from that grim chamber, the soldier's silent screams, and that cursed drip still clawing at your thoughts. Now you're in a dimly lit scriptorium, where the air smells of ink and old papyrus. It's 1400 BCE, and the Nile's waters aren't just breaking spirits, they're leaving a paper trail. As a scribe's apprentice, you're hunched over a reed pen, copying records that hint at the dark outcomes of water torture. That drip, the one that's been your unwelcome shadow since the Nile's banks, lives on in these scrolls, whispering truths and lies alike. Historical records, like the administrative papyri from Amarna, confirm water-based interrogations were documented with chilling detail. You're tasked with transcribing a report about a merchant accused of smuggling lapis lazuli. The priests used their trusty drip method, remember that workshop's pipe setup, to crack him. The scroll describes how he was tied under a clay spout, water hitting his forehead for hours until he named accomplices. You're just copying words, but each stroke feels like you're reliving his ordeal, the ink pooling like those relentless drops. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe claims suggest scribes hid secret codes in these records, using subtle hieroglyph tweaks to signal doubts about a confession's truth. Picture you're writing this report, slipping in a slightly wonky "read" sign to hint the merchant's story smells fishier than a Nile catfish. No proof of this cloak and dagger stuff, but it's a juicy idea. Historians still argue whether scribes played rebel or just stuck to the script. Were they quietly questioning the priest's methods? Or is this just a romantic theory from overeager archaeologists? You shift on your stool, the papyrus crinkling under your shaky hands. The scroll's details are brutal. The merchant lasted 6 hours before babbling names, some probably made up. The drip wasn't fancy, just a steady plop from a perforated jar, but it was enough to unravel him. It's like that time you tried ignoring a leaky faucet at midnight, except this leak cost lives. You can almost hear the drops, each one a hammer on the merchant's resolve, his voice breaking as he begged for relief. The priests noted his every word, and now you're etching them into eternity. The process is cold, mechanical. The priests would time the drips, sometimes adjusting the flow to keep the suspect off balance. They'd pause, letting him think it was over, then restart, the water hitting like a slap. The scroll mentions a second method, a slow pour over his face, making him gasp without drowning. You're starting to get why these reports read like horror stories. It's not just the torture, it's the precision, the way the Nile's sacred waters were weaponized to extract truth, or at least something close enough to pass. You scribble faster, wanting this job done. You catch a whiff of the scriptorium's damp walls, and it's like the Nile's crept in here too. The head scribe hovers, muttering about accuracy, but you're distracted, picturing the merchant's panicked eyes. Did he really smuggle? Or did he just crack under the drip? The scroll doesn't say, and neither do you. The priests believed the water spoke for Ma'at, but you're not so sure. A fellow apprentice jokes, quietly, that the Nile's better at making stories than finding truth. You don't laugh. The papyrus feels too heavy for that. As you roll up the scroll, the scriptorium's shadows seem to shift, like the merchant's ghost is watching. The torches sputter, and you wonder if the gods care about these records, or if they're just another offering to bureaucracy. You're not the one tied up, but the drip's echo is in your head, each word you've written a drop of its own. You stash the scroll and head for the door, the Nile's distant hum a reminder that its waters don't just flow, they haunt. The truth's on paper now, but it feels like a lie you're helping to tell. You're slipping out of the scriptorium, the weight of those inky confessions clinging to your fingers like damp papyrus. Now you're standing in a temple courtyard, the night sky heavy with stars and the faint musk of Nile mud. It's 1350 BCE, and the gods, especially Sobek, that crocodile-faced bruiser, are looming large. The priests aren't just dripping water to snag truths anymore. They're invoking divine heavyweights to justify their methods. That drip, your old nemesis since the river's edge, feels like it's carrying Sobek's cold gaze, and you're left wondering if the gods are nodding along or turning away. Historical records, like the stelae from Kom Ombo, confirm Sobek was revered as a truth enforcer, his watery domain tied to justice rituals. You're a temple onlooker, maybe a water carrier, watching a suspected spy, some guy who got too chatty with Nubian traders, face the priest's latest setup. He's tied to a stone slab under a clay pipe, water dripping onto his chest, each drop a wet thud that echoes in the courtyard. The priests chant Sobek's name, claiming the crocodile god's blessing makes the water a divine lie detector. You're just hauling jars, but the scene's giving you chills. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe tales suggest priests would toss a tiny Sobek amulet into the cistern, believing it charged the water with his ferocity. Picture you're that spy, already freaking out, and they're muttering about how Sobek's spirit is in every drop, ready to snap your soul like a reed. No amulets have been dug up to prove it, but the idea's wild enough to make your skin crawl. Historians still argue whether these charms were real or just psychological props to terrify suspects. Did Sobek's vibe make the drip hit harder, or was it all priestly theatrics? You shift your water jar, its weight digging into your shoulder as the spy twitches under the drip. The pipe's relentless, each drop landing like a pebble on his sternum, his breathing jagged like he's dodging crocs in the Nile. It's not loud, but it's maddening, like that one friend who texts you K every 5 minutes. The priest's chants weave Sobek's name into the air, their voices low and unyielding. The spy's denying everything. Nubians, messages, all of it. But his eyes are wide, searching the stars for a way out. You can almost feel the drops, cold and heavy, each one a question he can't answer. The setup's grim but clever. The pipe's fed by a cistern you helped fill, its flow controlled by a priest who tweaks it like he's playing a flute. Sometimes they shift the drip to his forehead, making him flinch or let a thin stream trickle over his face, just enough to make him sputter. It's not about pain, it's about breaking him, using Sobek's sacred water to wear down his lies. You're starting to get why people crack. It's not just the drip, it's the gods, the priests, the whole cosmos leaning in. The spy mumbles something, maybe a name, maybe nonsense. The priests don't blink, and the drip keeps going. You catch a priest's glance, and you swear he's sizing up your loyalty. Did you spill that jar last week on purpose? Nah, you're overthinking. But the courtyard's vibe is heavy, Sobek's stone statue looming like it's in on the game. The Nile's supposed to be a divine gift, but here it feels like a judge with teeth. The priests believe Sobek's watching, approving, but you're not so sure. A water carrier mutters, half joking, that Sobek's probably napping in the river, not caring about this drip show. You don't smile. The spy's gasps are too raw for that. As you haul your jar away, the courtyard's shadows stretch like Sobek's jaws. The torches flicker, and the spy's still tied, the drip still falling, the priests still chanting. You're not the one under the pipe, but you feel its weight, each drop a reminder of the god's cold stare. You head toward the temple's edge, the Nile's hum a low growl in the distance. Sobek's gaze might be divine, but it's not warm, and you're not sure the truth is worth this watery price. You're trudging away from the temple courtyard, Sobek's stone stare, and that endless drip still prickling your skin. Now, you're in a dusty holding cell carved into the temple's underbelly, where the air's thick with despair and damp stone. It's 1300 BCE, and the Nile's waters aren't just coaxing truths, they're crushing souls. You're a bystander, maybe a guard's assistant, watching captives fight to resist the water's unyielding pressure, only to crumble like sand under a flood. That drip, your old foe from the Nile's banks, is no longer a whisper. It's a hammer, and you're seeing what happens when defiance meets defeat. Historical records, like the judicial logs from Pi Ramesses, confirm water torture was a go-to for breaking even the toughest suspects. Picture a rebel, caught stirring trouble in a border village, strapped to a wooden frame in this cell. The priests have their drip system. Remember that workshop's sinister pipes? Tuned to perfection, water plopping onto his forehead from a clay spout. He's a hard case, all snarls and curses, but the drip doesn't care. It hits, steady and cold, each drop eroding his bravado. You're just there to check the ropes, but the scene's knotting your stomach. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe stories claim priests would hum a low chant, mimicking the Nile's flow, to sync the drip with the suspect's heartbeat. Imagine you're that rebel, already losing it, and the priest's eerie hum makes the water feel like it's pulsing inside you. like Sobek himself is squeezing your chest. No evidence of this creepy choir exists, but it's a wild thought. Historians still argue whether the priests used sound tricks, or if this was just a spooky rumor to hype their mystique. Was it psychological genius, or just another layer of temple theater? You shift against the cell's rough wall, the rebels' grunts filling the silence. The drips relentless, each plop a tiny explosion in the dim light. It's not loud, but it's deafening, like that one co-worker who chews gum like they're auditioning for a camel roll. The rebel's trying to hold out, spitting denials about the village plot, but his jaws clenched, his eyes flickering with doubt. You can almost feel the drops. Icy and precise, each one chipping away at his will. The priests watch, their faces calm as statues, their chants weaving Ma'at's name into the damp air. The setup's a masterclass in cruelty. The spout's fed by a small cistern, its flow tweaked by a priest who plays it like a harp string. Slow drips, then a sudden stream, then back to drips. Sometimes they shift the water to his chest, making his ribs heave, or let it trickle over his nose, forcing a gasp. It's not about killing him. It's about unraveling him, using the Nile's sacred weight to crush his resistance. You're starting to get why even rebels break. It's not just the water. It's the endlessness, the knowing it'll outlast you. The rebel mutters a name. Maybe a comrade, maybe a lie. The priests nod, but the drip doesn't stop. You catch a whiff of the cell's moldy air, and it's like the Nile's seeped into the walls. The rebel's not cursing anymore, his fight's fading, his body slumping against the frame. You wonder if he's guilty or just exhausted, but the water doesn't care about justice. It just wants answers. A priest glances your way, and you fumble with the rope, hoping he doesn't think you're slacking. Another guard mutters, half joking, that the drip's tougher than any spear. You don't smile. The rebels' shallow breaths are too heavy for that. As you step back, the cell's shadows seem to swallow the light. The torches sputter, and the rebels still tied, the drip still falling. The priests still waiting. You're not the one under the spout, but you feel its pressure, each drop a reminder that resistance is futile. You head for the cell's exit, the Nile's distant hum a grim echo of the water's victory. The rebels' ruin is just another day in Egypt, and you're not sure you'll ever shake the sound of that drip. You're slipping out of that suffocating cell, the rebels' broken gasps, and that merciless drip still ringing in your ears. Now, you're in a bustling temple archive, surrounded by towering shelves of papyrus scrolls, the air thick with dust and secrets. It's 1250 BCE, and the Nile's waters aren't just a tool for truth. They're evolving, their role in torture shifting with Egypt's dynasties. That drip, your relentless shadow since the river's edge, is no longer just a priestly trick. It's a tradition, morphing into something darker, more refined, and you're piecing together its twisted journey. Historical records, like the Ramesside judicial texts, confirm water-based interrogations grew more sophisticated over time, adapting to Egypt's changing power plays. You're a junior archivist, tasked with sorting scrolls about a disgraced noble who tried bribing a vizier. The priests used a refined drip system, think upgraded pipes from that creepy workshop, to break him, dripping water onto his face for days. The scrolls note how the methods changed, no longer just random drips, but a calculated rhythm, timed to fray nerves like a weaver unravels thread. You're just filing papers, but the words paint a grim picture. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe tales claim priests started using star-aligned drips, timing the water to match celestial patterns, believing Orion's gaze amplified the torment. Picture you're that noble, strapped down, and they're droning about how the stars are guiding each drop to pierce your lies. No evidence of this cosmic clockwork survives, but it's a wild idea. Historians still argue whether priests really synced drips with the skies, or if this was just a flashy myth to spook suspects. Was it divine astronomy, or just another layer of temple mind games? You shift a scroll, its edges crumbling under your fingers, as the noble's ordeal unfolds in faded ink. The drip was relentless, each drop hitting his forehead like a tiny spear, the rhythm shifting to keep him guessing. It's not just torture, it's choreography, like a dance you can't escape. You can almost hear the plop, steady then erratic, like that one song you can't unstick from your head. The noble held out for 2 days, the scroll says, before naming co-conspirators. Some real, some probably invented. The priest's new tricks worked, but you're starting to wonder if the truth was the real casualty. The method's evolution is chilling. Early drips were crude, just leaky pots. Remember the first chambers? But now, priests use bronze valves to control the flow, letting water hit harder or softer, faster or slower. Some setups have multiple pipes, targeting the face, chest, even the palms, each drop a calculated strike. They might pause the drip, letting the noble think it's over, only to restart with a cold splash. It's like when your phone dies mid-text, but with way higher stakes. The scrolls hint at training for priests, teaching them to read a suspect's twitches like a book. You're impressed, and a little sickened. You catch a whiff of the archive's musty air, and it's like the Niles followed you here, hiding in the damp papyrus. The noble's story ends with exile, his life spared but his spirit drowned. You wonder if he was guilty or just broken, but the scrolls don't care. They're just records, not judges. A senior archivist mutters, half joking, that the drip's better at making stories than finding facts. You don't laugh. The noble's fate feels too close, like a warning to keep your own nose clean. As you stack the scroll, the archive's shadows seem to lean in, the torches flickering like they're whispering secrets. You're not under the pipes, but you feel the drip's echo, each word you've read a drop of its own. The Nile's waters have changed, grown crueler with Egypt's ambitions, and you're not sure where this ritual's headed. You head for the archive's exit, the river's distant hum a reminder that its truth-hunting days are far from over. The drip's evolved, and it's hungrier than ever. You're stepping out of the archive's dusty shadows, the noble's inky fate, and that evolving drip still swirling in your mind. Now you're on a bustling trade road near Memphis, the Nile glinting nearby, its waters carrying more than just boats. It's 1200 BCE, and Egypt's truth-digging rituals are catching the eyes of outsiders, merchants, spies, maybe even a curious Greek or two, who can't wrap their heads around this watery inquisition. That drip, your old tormentor from the river's edge, is now a spectacle, and you're watching foreigners gawk at Egypt's strange ways, their whispers as sharp as the desert wind. Historical records, like the diplomatic letters from the Amarna archive, confirm Egypt's water-based interrogations puzzled visiting traders and envoys. You're a market scribe, jotting notes for a caravan leader when you overhear a Hittite merchant muttering about a thief caught by the priests. The guy was strapped under a bronze pipe. Remember the archive's upgraded drip systems? With water hitting his face until he confessed to stealing copper ingots. The Hittite's baffled, his accent thick as he describes the wet madness to his mates. You're just recording weights, but you can't help eavesdropping, caught between amusement and unease. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe stories claim priests would stage public drip shows for foreign visitors, using a fake suspect to flex Egypt's divine justice. Picture you're that Hittite, watching a staged thief squirm under a dripping pipe while priests chant about Ma'at, all to impress your caravan. No proof of these theatrical stunts exists, but it's a wild thought. Historians still argue whether priests put on such displays, or if foreigners just exaggerated tales to spice up their travel logs. Were these demos real, or just Egypt's PR team working overtime? You lean against a palm, your papyrus curling in the heat, as the Hittite keeps yapping. He's seen torture, ropes, whips, the usual, but this water thing? It's alien. Like finding a crocodile in your soup. The thief's confession, he says, came after hours of drips. Each one a soft plop that drove him to babble names. You can almost hear it, that steady rhythm, like a heartbeat you can't escape. It's not violent, but it's brutal, and the Hittite's wide eyes say he's not sure whether to laugh or run. You're starting to get why Egypt's methods spook outsiders. They're too quiet, too clever. The setup's evolved into a fine art. The priests use multiple pipes now, some dripping, some streaming, all fed by a cistern hidden behind a temple wall. They might shift the water's target, forehead, nose, throat, keeping the thief guessing, his body tensing with each change. It's like trying to sleep through a neighbor's erratic hammering, except this hammer's wet and wants your soul. The Hittite says the thief looked unbroken at first, all swagger, but by the end, he was a soggy mess, spilling secrets like a tipped jar. You scribble faster, half wishing you could unhear it. You catch a whiff of the Nile's muddy tang, and it's like the river's laughing at the Hittite's confusion. He's not wrong to be weirded out. The Nile's no ordinary interrogator. It's sacred, silent, and scarier than any whip. A local vendor jokes, quietly, that foreigners should try the drip before mocking it. You don't smile. The Hittite's unease is contagious, and you're wondering how you'd hold up under that pipe. The priests believe they're serving Ma'at, but to outsiders, it's just a bizarre, wet puzzle. The Hittite moves on, still muttering, and you wonder what stories he'll carry home. As you roll up your papyrus, the market's clamor fades. The Nile's glint a steady reminder of its power. The torches along the road flicker, casting shadows like curious eyes. You're not the one dripping, but you feel the weight of those drops, each one a question Egypt's still asking. You head back to the temple, the river's hum a soft taunt in the distance. The foreigners may gawk, but the Nile's ways are Egypt's alone, and that drip's not done leaving its mark. You're leaving the noisy trade road behind, the Hittite's baffled mutters fading as the Nile's shimmer pulls you back. Now you're wandering a quiet desert path, the sands stretching endless under a fading sun. It's 1150 BCE, and Egypt's water torture, the dripping nightmare you've tracked since the river's edge, is no longer just a temple secret. It's left faint ripples in the wider world. You're a lone traveler, maybe a scribe heading to a distant outpost, reflecting on how the Nile's truth-hunting ways have echoed beyond Egypt's borders, like whispers carried on the wind. Historical records, like the diplomatic exchanges in the late Bronze Age, suggest Egypt's interrogation methods influenced neighboring cultures, though faintly. You pause by a crumbling stele, its carvings worn but hinting at a Nubian rebel questioned with a drip method borrowed from Egyptian priests. The setup wasn't fancy, just a clay jar leaking water onto his face, but it was enough to make him name his allies. The priest's tricks, refined over centuries, remember those bronze valves, spread through trade and conquest, leaving traces in Nubia, maybe even Mesopotamia. You're just passing through, but the stele's story ties you back to the Nile's wet grip. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe tales claim Phoenician traders picked up a drip ritual from Egypt, using it to test dishonest sailors, but with seawater instead of Nile water. Picture you're a Phoenician captain, watching a shifty deckhand squirm under a salty drip, the priest's methods warped by salty pragmatism. No solid proof links these stories to Egypt, but it's a wild thought. Historians still argue whether Egypt's drip torture truly spread, or if similar methods popped up independently, like bad ideas do. Was it cultural borrowing, or just humans being predictably cruel? You shift your sandal, the sand gritty under your toes, as the stele's tail sinks in. The Nubian's ordeal sounds too familiar. Hours under a steady drip, each drop a hammer on his resolve, until he cracked like dry clay. You can almost hear it, that soft plop, relentless as a desert sun. It's not the Nile's sacred flow here, but the method's the same, a ghost of Egypt's temples haunting distant lands. You're starting to get why the drip's legacy lingers. It's simple, cheap, and scarily effective, like a recipe everyone wants to tweak. The method's core hasn't changed much. A jar, a rope, a victim. Basic, but brutal. The Nubians might have skipped the Sobek chants, but they kept the rhythm, the way the water wears you down like wind on stone. Some cultures, the stele hints, added their own spin, a faster drip, or a pause to fake mercy, then a cold splash. It's like hearing your favorite song covered by a band that misses the point. The scrolls you've read, back in that archive, never mentioned exports, but power spreads ideas, and Egypt's power was a flood. You wonder how far the drip traveled, and who's still using it. You catch a whiff of the desert's dry heat, a sharp contrast to the Nile's damp memory. The stele's silent now, but its story feels alive, like the drip's still falling somewhere. You're not under it, but you feel its weight, each imagined drop a reminder of Egypt's long shadow. A passing herder jokes, barely audible, that the desert's kinder than the river's truth games. You don't laugh. The stele's weathered glyphs are too heavy for that. The Nile's ways may have spread, but they're rooted in Egypt, where the water still rules. As you trudge on, the desert path blurs, the horizon swallowing the stele's shadow. The stars are peeking out, and the Nile's distant hum feels fainter, like a song you're forgetting. You're not the one dripping, but the legacy's there, etched in sand and stone. A faint echo of Egypt's watery justice. You keep walking, the desert's hush a soft reprieve, but you know the drip's mark isn't gone. It's just scattered, waiting to resurface. The Nile's truth hunt lives on, and you're almost ready to let it go. You're drifting away from that desert path, the stele's faint echoes dissolving into the sand. Now, you're back by the Nile's edge, under a canopy of stars, the river's gentle lap a soothing hum. It's 1100 BCE, and Egypt's watery truth hunt, the dripping saga you've followed from temple to trade road, is fading into the night. You're a weary traveler, maybe a poet seeking silence, sinking into the soft silt as the Nile's secrets slip away. That drip, your relentless companion, is finally quieting, and you're ready to let its story dissolve into dreams. Historical records, like the sparse texts from the Third Intermediate period, suggest water torture waned as Egypt's power dimmed, its methods softening or scattering. You sit by the river, imagining a final scene. A petty thief, spared the drip, questioned under starlight with only words, not water. The priest's old tricks, those bronze pipes, Sobek's chants, feel like relics, their edge dulled by time. The Nile's still here, its waters glinting, but it's less a judge now, more a witness, cradling Egypt's past as you cradle your thoughts. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some fringe tales claim late-period priests used Nile water to bless suspects, splashing them gently to coax truth without torment. Picture you're that thief, expecting the drip, but getting a soft sprinkle, like a bath from a kindly aunt. No proof supports this kinder ritual, but it's a sweet thought. Historians still argue whether priests truly softened, or if this was just a myth to polish Egypt's image. Was it mercy, or a last gasp of Ma'at's fading order? You lean back, the cool mud cradling you, as the Nile's whispers weave through the night. The drip's gone, its echo a memory you're ready to release. You can almost see the thief, his shoulders relaxing as the priest's voices blend with the river's flow. It's not about torture anymore. It's about closure, the Nile washing away centuries of secrets. You're starting to feel it too, a lightness, like shedding a heavy cloak. The stars twinkle, and you wonder if Sobek's out there, napping in the reeds, his work done. The river's rhythm is your lullaby now, each lap a soft nudge toward sleep. Egypt's truth hunt, with its drips and dread, feels distant, like a story told by someone else. You trace a finger in the silt, drawing nothing, just feeling the earth's pulse. The Nile's not judging you, it's inviting you to rest, to let go of the temples, the pipes, the broken rebels. A nightbird calls, its cry a gentle joke. Maybe it's saying, "No drips tonight, pal." You don't laugh, but you smile, the river's calm sinking into your bones. As you close your eyes, the Nile's glow softens, the stars blurring into a velvet haze. You're not running from the drip anymore. You're floating, carried by the river's endless flow. The truth doesn't need water now. It's in the quiet, the stillness, the dreams waiting just beyond the shore. You're ready to drift, to let Egypt's shadows fade, the Nile's hum your final guide. The night wraps you gently now, its embrace as soft as the Nile's caress. You're no longer chasing secrets or dodging drips. You're resting, the river's murmur a tender whisper in your ear. The stars above pulse slowly, their light a quiet promise that the world's still turning, even as you sink deeper into peace. Each breath you take is slower, heavier, pulling you toward a sleep as deep as the desert's heart. The Nile's stories are done, their weight lifted, leaving only the hum of water and wind to cradle you. Let the sands settle, let the river flow, let your mind wander where no drips can follow. You're safe here, under the endless sky, where dreams bloom like lotus flowers, soft and fleeting. Drift now, deeper, and let the night carry you home.